Today, we are going to look at some of the new features and fixes coming to Evergreen, Indiana in December. Throughout this presentation, we have image examples of most of the features fixes, but we will also be looking at them live on our migration server, which is what we have been, one of the servers we've been using to test some of this. So what is this? Evergreen, Indiana is currently running on version 3.13.5, and we usually say 3.13.5 plus because we kind of what we call cherry picked some, sorry for the noise, cherry picked some fixes from a future version like 3.13.6 and brought them into ours to help some fix it bugs. In order to keep up to date on the bug fixes, security, quality of life updates that are available, we need to upgrade. Some things to keep in mind. The upgrade isn't perfect. Even now, the community is working on fixes for issues found in this version, the version that we are upgrading to, that may be available to us at a later date. Many of the changes being made to Evergreen in general include compliance to accessibility guidelines. So it might be a little difficult to get used to, but none of the changes that are made in Evergreen are done out of malice or to make things not work. It's all for the betterment of the software. A testing group made up of staff from various libraries have been helping us test the new version of Evergreen. We fully appreciate all of the work they've already put in and will put in as testing continues up until basically up until the actual upgrade weekend. If you'd like to look at the entire spreadsheet of release notes for 3.15 and earlier, you can click on the link here in the slide. Since we are going from 3.13.5 to 3.15.6, all of the bug fixes and features applied between those two versions are included. So there's a lot happening. Let's talk about the upgrade itself. Starting the evening of December 5th, the servers will go down. We're thinking approximately 8 p.m. Eastern time. The web client and classic catalog will be down. Aspen may be accessible, but it will not update. That Saturday on December 6th, Jeremy will be working on the servers and databases that run the Evergreen, Indiana ILS. The plan is for Jeremy to complete the upgrade sometime on the 7th, that Sunday. When he is finished and initial testing has concluded by us, he will notify everyone via the support listserv that Evergreen is back up and running. Please don't try to access the web client until you receive the all clear. So what should you be doing? Prepare for downtime. This may look like scheduling system messages for your Aspen catalog, adding close dates to the editor if your library is closing for that weekend, or updating a social media post. If you are open that weekend, you will need to determine how you want to track circulations. Offline mode is one of the ways, albeit it can be a little finicky to set up, to track circulations during the downtime. Documentation can be found in the knowledge base, and previous webinar recordings are available on our YouTube channel. The offline mode hasn't changed at all, unfortunately, so there isn't an updated video, so we can use the same recording that we used last year. Alternatively, for libraries who are able to, spreadsheets work great. You can just scan the barcodes in, and writing it down is a tried and true method of tracking for libraries that are able to do so. Before we move forward with the presentation, you have obviously heard us say or use the phrase like, this has been angularized. So I just wanted to give a little definition, or maybe my definition of what Angular is. So the Evergreen ILS, the software, was built using various frameworks and code to make it work. Angular is one of those frameworks or newer frameworks used that allows Evergreen to run more efficiently, and it's more maintainable. So this is the framework that we are working towards, what we are slowly changing all of the modules or upgrading the modules to. So as we upgrade different functions and modules of Evergreen, we are quote unquote angularizing them. Let's look at some of the new features and fixes, the good and the bad may be subjective. So while circulation didn't receive any major changes this round, we still have some interesting new features and fixes. Dark mode is now available in the client. There are some areas that still need some contrast fixing for better viewing, but for the most part, it's looking pretty good. The keyboard shortcuts, the function F1 key to bring up checkout, those haven't changed since we had them in the original desktop staff client. But now they are applied to menus, and there is a useful pop-up via the logout menu and by pressing Control H on your keyboard. There is a new button on the place hold screen in the staff catalog that will allow you to retrieve the last opened patron account and apply their hold notification settings. A few other updates to the staff catalog. We can now hide the list of facets that appear on the left of the screen after a search and disable highlighting when search results match our search terms. These can provide more screen space for results. And then just as a heads up, the highlighting changes, those are saved at the user level, and I'll show you what I mean. So once we get this next function figured out, the OPAC alert banner libraries will be able to set up a local alert in the classic catalog. It's a new library setting that your local admins will be able to configure. We are still working out some of the issues, so it may not be available as soon as we upgrade. A couple of additions and a removal from the workstation menu. There is now an option to prevent links from opening in new tabs, an option to change the table density, and the search preferences have finally been removed. Quick reminder that you will likely need to log out and back in for these changes to take effect. Or if you remember, when the staff catalog was upgraded, we could set up our search preferences there, but we still could see them in the workstation menu. There have been issues in the past when trying to update those preferences in either place because it did not update in one or the other. So they have just removed them from the workstation menu and have supplied a link to the catalog. The self-check function has been upgraded or angularized. There is going to be a new web address used, but Jeremy is going to configure an automatic redirect so you don't necessarily have to update your machines immediately. I mean, it may be a good idea to put on a list in the future, though, to update that. As part of the self-check upgrade, there are now new templates available, and those have been moved to that local administration print templates area, which is where that's the same area we maintain our holds pull list template now. A couple new columns, some minor but helpful updates to the hold shelf. They have added owning library and user permission group columns. The owning library may be useful to view who owns the item, and the user permission group column may be helpful to make sure you've maybe an example like for homebound titles. This will allow you to make sure you've pulled all of those titles from the shelf for like delivery. In the catalog for placing holds, if a part is attached to only non-holdable items or no item, it's not going to appear in the parts dropdown on that place holds page. This should help alleviate some of those hopeless holds that pop up from now and again. All right, let's get into the examples. Okay, double checking you guys can see the migration server. I am logged in. You should be looking at the splash page right now, or homepage or portal page.
Yes, that's what we can see.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so what dark mode does, it is a really helpful feature for those who need to darken the screen. If you notice on your phone, like on your cell phone sometimes, at night, the screen darkens to make it easier for your eyes to see the screen. It doesn't put so much strain on your eyes when you're looking at something bright in a dark room. Now, Evergreen has the ability, when you click on this button here, you can click dark to change to dark mode. It is saved at the browser level. So it's not like it's like workstation or anything like that. It's browser. So if you don't like it or if you set it up at like the circulation desk, you will need to go in and change it. The auto mode is supposedly set based on your computer's settings. Most of the time, like, you have these on during the day, so it won't automatically switch. So you may have to just switch between light and dark manually. but this might be a lot easier on the eyes. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to light. Ooh, that is bright when you're used to dark mode. So the next thing I wanted to show you were those keyboard shortcuts. So when we go into the menu, now we can see there are little icons that show us what the short keys are for the functions that have them. So for example, check out F1, check in F2. It appears also in the cataloging and the search menus. Also, though, we have under in the log out menu, when we click on here, there is a button here to bring up a keyboard shortcuts. Also, if you press Control H on your keyboard, it will also bring them up. So this should show you all of those on a single page. We have already set this new recent patron button is going to be enabled for everyone. So when you access, so I'm going to do a quick search. And I'm going to click on the title, or you can just click the placehold button here. We now have a recent patron button here. So when we click it, it's going to pull in the last account that you accessed, whether it's a staff working account or a patron's. It's going to automatically apply that information to the patron barcode and those notification settings. While we are here, let's look at those search preferences. If you remember, search preferences are accessible here. Most of them are set at the workstation level. We now have the ability to sort of permanently, but if you know, we have these filters up here to limit to available group formats, editions. These are now available to turn them on by default. Right now, when you enable them, it's good for that current search or that catalog session that you are in. But when you leave and you come back, they are turned off again. So now you have the ability through the search preferences to turn them on until you turn them off again. You may need to refresh to enable that. This is the highlight search term option. So right now I have it disabled. So if you noticed let's click return and go back to the results, nothing is highlighted. Right now, when you search, anything that matches the terms you used in your search field will be highlighted in the result. So that is something you can now disable if you would like. But the highlight search terms option, this is the only option on this list that is saved at the user level. Everything else is still workstation based. So this is the only thing that will follow the user around. Hiding facets. Maybe not everyone uses these, but we have the facets here. You could click on an author and then see all of the record results that apply to that selection, whether it's the personal author, another subject, genre, series, etc. Well, now we can hide them. So by clicking on this Hide Facets button, it's going to just completely hide them from the screen. And it's sticky, so this will remain hidden until you manually click it again. So like that.
Right, so we have a question in the
Sure.
chat.
Okay.
So we can enable the limit to available and group formats editions to be turned on by default, but not exclude electronic resources.
No, that should still be a default option. I just didn't, that's just not something that has changed. That has always been, you could always enable that and then keep it on by default. Because if you remember, the exclude electronic resources button in the search preferences does not actually exclude electronic resources. It just provides the option to exclude electronic resources. So technically, this is still sticky, or it can be turned off or it can be turned on. It can turn on this button by default. So self-checkout, there is going to be a new link. Obviously, this link on the screen will not work until after the upgrade. Um, Jeremy will plan to set up an automatic redirect to the new link, so there shouldn't be an immediate need to update those links. The templates. So let me bring back my thing. So if we go to administration, local administration, and you will need to have local admin permissions in order to clone and customize your own templates. But we'll access them here under print templates. And then the default ones will be available here. So we have the self-checkout checkouts, receipt, finds, holds, and items out. So you will be able to update these templates if you need to. I haven't gotten into these too much just yet, but once the self-check has been enabled, these templates will be automatically in use. So we will be able to go over how to clone these if you need to change the receipts for your library, and we'll be able to show you how to do that. The additional columns to the holds shelf. So we're going to go into circulation and holds shelf. And I'm going to change it to another library. Let's go for, I'm looking at the list of people. Let's go to Fulton County. So now we can see we have user permission group and owning library. So we can sort by user permission. So now we can see, okay, these are outreach. So maybe if your library has homebound individuals and they have the outreach profile, this might be helpful in making sure that you have all of those titles pulled and ready to be delivered. In the owning library, this might be helpful. It's possible your um, library manages your own items a little differently than when you have other libraries material on your hold shelf. So this might be able to be a quick way to determine ownership if you don't necessarily look at the barcodes. All right, cataloging. I'm not going to go into lots of depth in this. A lot of this we're going to cover in the Cat 1 refresher. So the first major thing for cataloging is the record buckets interface has been upgraded or angularized. We can now batch upload records using database or record IDs. We will be able to transfer buckets to other users more easily. That tends to happen when staff persons leave, but the buckets that they have in their account are still active. So you will be able to transfer them to active staff working accounts. You'll also be able to mark certain buckets as favorites, view shared buckets more easily. There are some issues with the record buckets. For one major example is record query is gone. So we are leaving the link to what we're calling legacy record bucket module, or what we are using right now. We are leaving that linked in the menus, so you can still access that if you need to use the record query option. The standalone templates editor has finally been angularized or upgraded. We shouldn't, and I say that in an italicized way, we shouldn't have any more issues between templates made um, in the standalone templates editor and within the holdings editor itself, though we have yet to thoroughly test and determine that. But we'll be able to selectively export templates, and it now matches the template editor within the holdings editor. In the holdings editor itself, item attributes have been updated for accessibility, and the template management has been moved to a separate tab. Again, we are aware of some bugs and are watching Launchpad, which is the software or website that the Evergreen community at large uses to track bug bugs and like wish list items. So we are watching that uh, for um, for future fixes to be released. In the staff catalog, you may have noticed when we were looking at the facets that we now have the ability to more easily add records to a bucket, whether it's a general bucket or one of our favorites. This is a tab that has been added to that facets area, and there's also a new button below the placehold option in each search result. We now have the ability to batch edit parts in the holdings editor, which means we can apply a part to all of our selected items within the holdings editor. In the mark editor, a few fixes have been applied for navigation and the fix fields. I'm glad some of these issues that we've been facing are being taken care of. Um, a couple fixes in the fix fields, the fix fields that have multiple character options now have their own mini field to apply a code. The field option drop downs that appear when you click on a tag, so you can select your option if you want to go that route, is more reliable. They've also added a special character pop-up so you can copy paste into the mark record. The search functions for the record ID and TCN searches, within the cataloging top navigation menu have been updated. There is a new drop-down that will allow you to actually switch between the different types from each function. And then several fixes have been applied to item notes and alerts, including the ability or re-ability. I think we used to be able to do this and then it kind of broke to add item notes or alerts to templates. And then lastly, for cataloging for today, the monograph parts tab within the records will save any grid changes you make. Also, we can now see who created or edited the parts instead of them all saying admin. So let's go into, no, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to go into cataloging and the record buckets. Actually, let's get on the home page. Okay, the new record buckets link is here. This is the original, or now we are calling legacy. So you'll still be able to access that. So you can use the record query, which I will agree with probably all the catalogers out there is upsetting that it is gone because it is extremely helpful. But then also in the cataloging top nav menu, we have links to the new record buckets and the legacy. So I'm going to click on that. There is some weirdness going on with buckets maybe that have been deleted in the past are still showing up. And then these like strange temporary merge buckets, we're trying to figure out what's going on with that. Um, but can now um, we can now see like the total buckets. Things that have been marked favorite, you can keep on a separate tab so you can easily access them. There will be shared with others, visible to me, etc. The new bucket, like creating, is basically the same, but this is exciting. The holdings template editor. So let me bring up this again. Again, I'm going to just bring up the homepage just so we can start from scratch everywhere. Go to cataloging and the holdings template editor. There should also be a link under administration and local administration, but this is probably where you guys will access it the most. So I click on that. And here is the new standalone templates editor. We can easily access our templates here. When we edit, when we click it here or edit selected, it's going to open in a new tab and allow us to edit that from here. But this will allow us, we can specify which templates we want to export instead of exporting all of them at one time like we were required to do before. It's just a lot easier to view everything instead of everything just being in that drop down. The next thing, which I know there will be some discussions, lively discussions about the updated holdings editor. So I'm going to go into add holdings. And I currently have it set up so my holdings and attributes are combined, um, but the item attributes have been adjusted. So when we want to change something, obviously this won't matter a whole lot when we have our templates because we can just select it and apply it and it's going to change. But when we need to individually change um, attributes, we're going to click on the field and then we can select our option from the drop down. Um, and so we will do that with all of those statistics. So we still have them here. So when we click on that, we can select that there. The red, of course, means that it is required. We do have a changes pending um, banner that appears when we have made a change here. And then if maybe we forget to enter a barcode, it's going to tell us that we need to have at least one barcoded item to make these changes. Um, so, and then actually while I'm here, because I don't recall if I added it to here, this is the templates. This actually used to say administration, and Jeremy thankfully just changed it from administration to templates because that made more sense. So when we click on templates, we can now see those holding templates that we have. And it should basically work the same as the standalone templates editor. It has just now been separated from the attributes tab. So all you do here is the select a template and apply it. Now, one of the major bugs we have right now that we are looking at a fix that I want to let you know if you decide to go in and test is sometimes when you create like you select something from an attribute and then maybe go in and click clear, it's not going to work. The major one is if you try to add a shelving location and then clear, it's going to freeze your entire browser. So just heads up if you decide to go into like the training server and play around with that, which I will highly recommend you do. The next thing are those buckets in the catalog. So I'm going to close the holdings editor. Yes, I'm going to leave. And let's go back to our results. So now if we want to add a record to one of our record buckets, we can click on this tab here to view favorites, or even like our recent ones that we have accessed. And we can kind of hover over this and add the record here. If we click on that, well, you have to select a record first, and you can add one here, or you can add it to this by clicking on this add to bucket or this drop down, and you can add it to one of your favorite buckets here. This might be helpful. Well, I mean, it's similar to if you have multiple selected here in your basket actions, you could add it to a record bucket here as well. It's just an alternative method. Let's say you are adding parts to your collection. You have the ability to, of course, select a batch of them at a time and open them in the holdings editor. You can batch apply a part to those items, a part that has already been created, or create one on the fly and then apply it, and then it applies to all of your items. All right, let's look at the mark editor. All right, so let's get back into the last graduate. I'm going to go into mark edit. Nothing has really changed for the flat text editor, but we can see here that the multi-character fixed fields now have their own individual fields to start adding those codes. Also, there's no longer an issue where, like, if you're tabbing in and you select and you want to enter it yourself, there's no issue with like the second character because before, or at least right now, when you click into a fixed field and you try to enter a code, it would default to the second character space and not the first, which is where the code needs to go. So that has been fixed, which I am personally grateful for because that bothered me a lot. There have been some fixes applied to the navigation. So say you're tabbing through the like the field. Now this part hasn't really been fixed, but if you press the right button or the right arrow key on your keyboard, it will open or it will highlight that field that is in there. Um, That isn't really a new thing. It's something that they set up within 313, which is what we are using right now. But this is actually something that I semi-recently figured out. The special characters option. So if we click here, it's going to show us all Latin, punctuation, and Canadian syllabics. I have heard that these don't necessarily work correctly yet, but the Latin, if you, let's say you click on the N with a tilde, so it's copied. And so when we go into, let's say I'm going to paste here and it's there. Now the short keys like that Alt, um, I think what is it? 0369, the one for copyright, like all of that should still work, but you have that special characters option so you can copy paste. And I'm kind of just noticing, or maybe it's in, oh, there it is. The copyright symbol is right here. So that'll be very helpful for those who don't necessarily use the Alt keys. The undo redos should be fixed, and those are some of the major. The changes to the record ID and TCN. So let's go back to home. So we have these retrieve bib by record ID and TCN. So when we click on either of them, it's going to take us to, well, the named format, but we now have a drop down that will allow us to switch between them. This might be helpful because if we notice, the TCN search is the only one that has a short key. So maybe if we type in Shift F3, we can quickly get to either or of the search types with that drop down. So that might be helpful in workflow, make things a little faster. Or if you prefer, just clicking one or the other, whichever you prefer. The grid changes, we can now save the um, any changes we want to make to the grid before. If we added or deleted a column from here, it wouldn't save. And now we can see who created or edited a part. I don't have any examples for acquisitions, but I wanted to share some of the fixes. There was an issue in this since this last upgrade, I believe, where the fund dropped down, staff who were using acquisitions weren't able to see all of the funds associated with their library system or branch. That should be fixed now. There's also from the last update, there was um, the provider codes that you would use were replaced with the full provider name. So that is being switched back to provider codes. Fix also, we can now allow receiving canceled or backordered line items in the acquisition search. This was a regression, so that has been fixed. And then a couple grid configuration fixes, like on the distribution formulas grid, changes can now be saved if you make any changes to that. Reports. There have been more fixes applied to the new reporter to make it more stable. So we are now in a place where I feel comfortable saying if you haven't started playing around with it yet, please do so. It's still possible that older templates won't work in the new reporter. Just a heads up. So this is just a quick look at the new reports. I have been using it for some of the reports that I've been running just to get more used to it. So we will start training with it. I have actually been using the new report module with training the new migrating libraries. The old reporter is still available and is linked as legacy in the menus. So um, it's not going away yet. Um, but the new reporter module is just going to get more and more stable as it can be, I guess. Um, so I'm very excited that is more usable. But training on the new reporter will probably begin early next year. It's your turn. The training server has been updated. Yes, Mary Kay. Yes, the old reporter will eventually go away, just not yet. Um, The training server has been updated. Get in there and start clicking around. I have provided links on accessing the training server. Um, Also on the login page, there's a link to the spreadsheet of staff patron bib records to use because the training server is using what the community calls concerto data set. So it's like a completely fake data set of patrons, bib records, staff accounts, things like that. You have to use those in the training server. So I have also provided a link on the video on how to register a workstation for the training server from our YouTube training channel. Okay, a couple important reminders. You may have seen this in the updates that Courtney sent out yesterday, but these are important enough to include in today. You may have been hearing in the last probably year or so about a server move. Um, it's in the process of being scheduled, possibly the end of January 26th. This will mean complete downtime. Evergreen will be down completely. We have been providing information to you guys as soon as we get it. So as soon as we get a date, we will let you guys know. Another reminder, the Aspen upgrade. Aspen will be unavailable the morning of December 5th as Equinox upgrades our software version. This will provide some new features and some fixes. Um, and this kind of coincides with our Evergreen Indiana upgrade to decrease the amount of downtime for you guys and your patrons. Refreshers are coming up. The first Cat 1 refresher is this Friday, and the second and the local admin refreshers are next week. The links to register are in the calendar or plan to watch on the Moodle website. Those recordings will be available up there as soon as I can get them up there. Courtney finished emailing the membership invoices to the directors yesterday, so please reach out if you have issues accessing the attachment. Are there any questions? Sarah asked if our holdings templates will roll over to the free 315. They should. I haven't seen any information otherwise. Clarifying Aspen is going down the morning of December 5th and Evergreen in the evening. Aspen should be down just that morning, should be available throughout the rest of the day. And then once Evergreen is taken down, I assume Aspen might be up. It just won't update similar to when a reindex occurs. Um, but I'm going to probably err on the side of caution and say it's all going to be unavailable once Jeremy takes the servers down. But Aspen itself and Evergreen should be available during the rest of that day on the 5th. Okay, Jocelyn confirmed that her holdings templates worked on the while testing her templates. And while you guys add more questions, if you have them, I just wanted to big thank you to our admin team. Of course, Courtney, Jeremy, and Kristen have been working really hard for this upgrade. Jeremy especially making sure that all of the service that we have, like for practicing and development, work correctly. So when the weekend comes, it's the upgrade to our production server, the web client that you guys access will be as seamless as possible. So I just want to big shout out to the rest of the team. Can't do it without you.